Okay, everybody, I'm Nicole Caldwell. Welcome to Houseplant Academy, Houseplants in the Holidays. This is probably my favorite one so far that I've done because I just love using plants to decorate, as maybe you could tell, having known me or having seen the plants I keep in my office. Okay, so right here on this first screen are some beautiful ice crushed poinsettias, and we're going to be going over poinsettias and all kinds of other traditional holiday plants. Okay, so before we get started, I did want to say we are going to continue the Houseplant Academy in 2025. Now, this flyer that's up here obviously is the one for this year, so it's not the new one, but I just wanted to kind of give you an idea. In February, we're going to have microgreens for people and pets you can grow indoors. In March, we'll have terrariums. April, we'll have growing succulents and cacti indoors. And in May, we're going to have moss gardening indoors and some out. So hopefully you guys will register for those and join me and we'll have some more fun. Okay, and then always as a reminder, if you have horticulture questions, you can always contact Extension. If there's something on this presentation that you have a question about, you could just put a note in the chat, or if you're here in person, you can raise your hand at the end and we can address it. If you think of something later that you would like to ask me, you could always call the number here. You can email us. You can come by if you really want to drive all the way to Lawrenceville. But either way, point being, you can always contact us at Extension about your horticulture questions. Okay, so this is houseplants and the holidays, and we want to talk about basically being able to decorate for any holiday. So it's not just Christmas. You can use plants for Hanukkah and Kwanzaa as well, and we will talk about that as we go. But there's always a way to incorporate plants into the holidays, even not just the winter holidays, but all throughout the year. We're going to focus on the winter holidays today. Okay, so I'm going to spend several slides talking about the holiday cactus because it's probably the holiday plant that I get the most questions about. There's a lot of confusion about it because they're not all labeled correctly in the store. People don't always know which type they have. I honestly found it confusing before I really dug into the research and figured out the different names. So let's just start with general care. They like bright indirect light, no intense direct sunlight. These are succulents, so even though they like a lot of high bright light, they don't want to be scorched and burned in the sunshine. They prefer 75 to 80 degrees. They will not tolerate a frost. They like it cool but never cold, so they're kind of like us. Bloom time can range from November to January. Not all of them bloom in late December, though. Some of them bloom even after December. Some will bloom early. Any time in that winter span is normal. Just because it may say Thanksgiving cactus or Christmas cactus doesn't mean it's going to bloom on that particular holiday. It's just a name. Watering, they like frequent watering, which is kind of counterintuitive. Considering that they're succulents, you would think not water them very often, but they have very, very shallow root systems. So you will want to water them often and make sure the soil drains well. They don't want to be waterlogged. Fertilizer 10-10-10 once per month. You'll stop fertilizing in September and don't resume until after the plant is done blooming. So that's something that I hadn't done before that I'm going to incorporate is making sure I fertilize once per month. Previously, I would just put some all-purpose fertilizer like a fish emulsion in every time I watered, and I found that this using the 10-10-10 once a month was really a better method and very few pest or disease issues. Now, if you have a holiday cactus and you're wondering what kind of cactus it is it a Thanksgiving, a Christmas, or an Easter? I'm here to tell you it's probably a Thanksgiving cactus. If you look at the leaves on these, and actually, these aren't technically leaves, these are stems. Those green stem segments are just stems, not leaves. And the ones for the Thanksgiving cactus will be like a claw. Most of what you find when you go to a florist, a grocery store like Kroger or Publix, or even a lot of the big box stores and nurseries, you're going to find them as the claw-like Thanksgiving cactus. And they'll still be labeled as Christmas cactus or possibly zygo cactus. To get a true Christmas cactus, it's going to have more of the smooth scalloped leaves like you see, or stems, I should say. And then the Easter cactus is a totally different variety completely. It's a Ripsalidopsis, whereas the Thanksgiving and Christmas, as you'll see, are the Schlumbergera. So just keep that in mind, a little bit of knowledge for you if you're interested, if you want to know what kind of cactus you have, this is the guideline. So they belong to two different genera, the Ripsalidopsis or the Schlumbergera, like I mentioned. The Ripsaladopsis are often referred to as the Easter cactus and will bloom in spring. So they're not the ones we typically have blooming around the wintertime. Schlumberger are the ones that we don't deal with mostly in like October, November, December, January. A lot of these are labeled zygocactus. When I was at Kroger buying some Christmas cactus recently, and I call them Christmas cactus because it just seems to be the most common word, and Christmas is coming up, so that's what we say. But they were actually labeled zygocactus, and they are truly a Thanksgiving cactus. So even though they said zygocactus, and even though they were on a display as Christmas cactus, they were Thanksgiving cactus. So it's not scientifically accurate, but if you want to know, what they truly are, truncata, Thanksgiving cactus is it. Zygocactus is just one of those general terms people still use, even though it's not scientifically correct. Okay. So a lot of people will contact me and say they have an old holiday cactus that has bloomed for years and years, and all of a sudden it won't bloom, or they've inherited a large holiday cactus that now they don't know what to do with. For some reason, this plant in particular is passed down through families a lot. So let's talk about signs of stress. Reduced flower bud formation. If you come upon the winter season and all of a sudden you're only getting a few flower buds, the flower buds may drop. And this happens a lot if you purchase a holiday cactus and bring it home and it's been in this moist, humid environment with warmth, and you take it to your dry, cool house. Any sort of drastic change in the atmosphere like that will cause them to drop. Reduce growth of the plant stems. Remember, those are stems, not leaves. Shriveling of the youngest stems. So all the new little stems that come out the top will be shriveled even though you're watering your plant. That's a sign that it's in stress. Dropping of those younger stem segments, and then getting the little adventitious roots. You'll see like each little stem segment will have the hairy little roots. And when I saw that, I thought, oh, great, it's trying to propagate. It's so healthy. But no, actually, it's a sign of a stressed plant. So prevention is always the best cure. Repot your holiday cacti every 4 to 5 years. And when you do, remove all of the old soil. It needs new soil. You might have to anchor it some way because those roots are very shallow. Sometimes, though, when you have an unhealthy or stressed holiday cactus, it may not bounce back. What you can do whenever it's in a really dire situation, I put here, inspect the roots, take out any of the dead roots or ones that look unhealthy, black, dead, just not fresh. And then let them air dry before you repot. Let them air dry for a few days, just like you would a succulent of another variety. You would just leave it out and let it kind of callus up before you potted it. Pot it into some fresh soil, water it sparingly, only to the area where the new roots are. And this will give your plant the best chance of survival, but it's not a guarantee. It could still eventually succumb, as I said, but this is what you want to do if you want to give it some TLC and try to revive it. Okay. So I get this question too. How does my holiday cactus know when to bloom? How does it know it's November or December? People actually will ask me this question, and I'm like, well, I don't think it knows that it's November, but it's a scientific thing. It's called photoperiod. It's the number of hours of daylight the plant receives. And so that's how a lot of these holiday plants know when to bloom in the wintertime. It's based on how many days of daylight they're receiving and the temperature. It's basically information for the plant. So the cold or cool night temperatures of 55 to 60, along with the shorter days, will stimulate your cactus to put out buds. If it's kept in a warm room where the temp is above 60, you're going to have to do some intervention. You might want to expose it to 10 hours of daylight and then 14 hours of darkness for 4 weeks, bounce it back and forth. Once the buds set, you can cease that practice. My mom lives in Missouri. They're zone 6B, I want to say, where she lives. And she keeps all of hers out on a table in the shade under the tree. And she never has to go through any sort of, light dark cycle. It just, when she naturally moves them in, before the frost, they set buds and they're fine, but you may have a different experience with your plant. So just keep in mind, you might have to artificially recreate some of those circumstances. And if you want it to bloom at a certain time your practice around your desired bloom date. And this picture I think is so cool. This is from a YouTuber, very popular, Garden Answer. She's repotting a 200-year-old holiday cactus there. And this thing was, it was massive and it was a huge undertaking. And if you ever want to look it up, go on YouTube. It's a sight to see. Okay. Amaryllis is one of my favorite, possibly the favorite holiday plant that I have because I have so many of them. I've been known to buy 15 to 20 amaryllis bulbs every winter. Don't shame me, please. People who know me are laughing, but yes, it's true. You can buy these as bare bulbs, planted bulbs in little pots, or wax bulbs, which are a lot of fun. The larger the bulb, the more flowers that bulb is going to produce. So always choose the largest bulb. When you go to a nursery and they have a big box of them and they're all in there, don't just grab anything. Really search for the healthiest one you can find. And if they have like a little growth on the bottom, that's a new one that's going to form and it can eventually be split off to propagate. So I always go for those two. I try to get my biggest bang for my buck. Make sure the bulb is firm, no visible mold or decay. Sometimes, the literature will tell you it's okay if it has a little bit of mold, but you don't want a completely moldy bulb. I've seen these in stores before. I've seen them in nurseries before. The quality from place to place is not uniform. You always want to inspect and don't just assume because you're going to a nursery or a reputable place that all their bulbs are going to be great, because sometimes they're not. So check that out. It's fine if you see some new growth or leaves already popping out. A lot of times if you go to a big box store, they have those kits and you'll see leaves like coming out of the box. And I know people think, should I buy that? Is it okay? It's totally fine. It's just responding to the light in the store. So choose a narrow planter that's an inch wider than the widest part of the bulb and twice as deep as the height of the bulb. You'll always see these planted in narrow planters. It's pretty intuitive. Okay, so put it in a sunny window, water when the top 2 inches of the soil are dry. Don't let it sit in water. And this is pretty much the case for most of your plants, unless it's like a rainforesty terrarium plant. You don't want your plant's roots to be sitting in water or bulbs to be sitting in water. You'll start fertilizing once the new growth is visible, and you can use a half-strength fertilizer. Fertilizer for amaryllis should be high in phosphorus, which is the middle number. And I put an example here. It doesn't have to be 10, 20, 15, like I say here. It can be, any amalgamation of those numbers, but make sure that middle number is the highest one. After the plant's done flowering, keep the green leaves going by watering and placing in a sunny window. In September, move it to a dark closet for 8 to 12 weeks, then bring it out to water it and put it in a bright spot. And flowering will usually happen 4 to 6 weeks later. Now, these wax bulbs are so beautiful. I've been buying those too. They're so much fun. They're great gifts for people who don't know how to take care of plants or they're really intimidated by plants. You give them a wax bulb and what do I do with it? Nothing. You just set it there and look at it. They're meant as single-use bulbs. They can be made to reflower. People will sometimes take the wax off, just peel the wax off, pot them up, and see if they can get them to bloom again. Most of the time, they're not going to bloom that next winter because they have not been able to store up all of the energy they need because they've been encased in that wax. They need to be in some soil with some fertilizer to build all that back up. And then maybe 2 years later, you might get a rebloom. If you don't feel like messing with it, by all means, take the wax off and put it in the compost. Nobody's going to shame you. Paper whites. Those are very, very easy bulbs to grow, and they're very nice for a variety of holidays. Looking at the colors of the different plants, paper whites are obviously white. A lot of the Hanukkah colors are blue and white. You can use these for Christmas, for Hanukkah, for New Year's, any of those winter holidays, just for a nice wintry look. They don't require a cold storage period to bloom. Most of the time when you purchase paper white bulbs, they've already been chilled. If they haven't gone through some sort of chilling period, it should say on the package or the box, but I've really never encountered that. I think they're all sold pretty much these days. It's already pre-chilled. You can force them in a clear, shallow bowl with no drainage holes, which is something that throws people off because we're used to always wanting to put holes for that bulb to drain. If you put them in a bowl with no drainage holes, you want to partially fill that bowl with gravel or stones, add water until it touches just the bottom of the bulbs, and maintain that water level throughout. And then you want to just make sure you're not drowning it, but just letting it kind of sit on top of the water so the roots will hit it. In a pot, just partially fill the container with soil, add the bulbs on top, and then cover it up to the neck so the tips are sticking out. And you just want to keep the soil moist through the forcing period. Paper whites will not rebloom typically. All the literature that I've read has said that they're really one and done type of winter bulbs. So live greenery is wreaths, garlands, swags, so much fun, such wonderful scents you can get out of those. And it's so nice to actually get the real thing. We all, I know, have artificial greenery here and there, and it's convenient, but when you can get something that's real, it really kind of livens up your home and makes your day. Gathering it around your home can provide the freshest and most varied selection. So if you're able to go out to your yard or your nearest nearby woods that you actually have permission to forage in, you're going to get greenery that's fresher than if you would go to even a really nice nursery because you're picking it right then. Always make sure that you have permission to gather greenery wherever you're taking it. And then whenever you're cutting greenery, you want to make sure that you're keeping in mind the shape it's going to be after you prune it. So some people will want to go out and get some boxwood or some pine, and just keep in mind that you are affecting the way that plant's going to keep looking. So try to do it evenly. Best for indoors, pines, firs, and cedars because they dry out slowly and hold their needles the best indoors. I have a little tabletop Fraser fir that I got this year, and it's hardly dropped any needles. I'm really impressed because indoors is very dry at my house. Somehow it's holding on. Best for outdoors would be the hemlock, spruces, and most broadleaf evergreens. There's a little note here about ground pine I read, princess pine or creeping cedar, those are all names for it. It's native and slow growing, and if you try to go out there and forage it or gather it, after only a few years, you can destroy that population. So try not to forage that one because it will be decimated very quickly. So when you're using evergreens, fresh evergreens, it's always a good idea to use one of these products. I love Wilt Stop and Wilt Proof because they really help your evergreens hold on to moisture longer. I personally don't like misting the evergreens when they're on my wood furniture, and I know that I'm getting water everywhere because even if I'm wiping up behind it or whatever, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna leave water spots or I'm gonna make them, cause some sort of water damage, even though it's mist. This way I can treat the plant before I even get it set out, and it'll maintain its freshness. And then I can go and just mist with some water occasionally, make sure I dry it up and not have to worry so much about it getting dry. Make sure the needles can bend without breaking, and keep greenery away from open flames and heat sources. That's kind of obvious, but if you've got some lights sitting next to your greenery and those lights heat up, most of them these days don't, but we probably all have old holiday lights around our house that aren't the new, non-heating kind. You want to make sure that they're not getting your greenery hot. Hollies, yews, mistletoe, and Jerusalem cherry all have poisonous berries, so make sure those are out of reach of children and pets. I have cats, and I got the most beautiful holly berry sprigs that I put in this pitcher, and I thought, oh, please let my cat leave it alone. No, he went right for it. So I said, okay, that's it. Got to put him outside. So the things we suffer for. All right, poinsettia. So these bloom when the days get shorter, and what we consider the flowers are actually leaves or bracts. So the flowers technically are those little yellow things in the center. They're called cyathea. Contrary to popular belief, they are not poisonous. So I know a lot of people tell me, oh, I can't get poinsettias because my cat will eat them and he'll die. Well, actually, he won't. I mean, you don't want your cat to eat it because it might cause them some stomach distress. I mean, nobody wants their dog or cat eating plants and getting sick, but it shouldn't kill any pet or person. I've actually saw a video of someone online proving this point, and they were making a salad out of poinsettia leaves. I would not recommend that. I'm not interested. That sticky sap can cause dermatitis. I don't know what it would do to your mouth having that in there, but just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. So bright daylight, 65 to 70 degrees indoors, away from drafts. If you have it near a heat register or someplace where heat's coming out, that's not good for your plants. It's just too much of a fluctuation in humidity. No need to fertilize your poinsettia during the holidays, so that's very nice. If you want to keep your plant after the holidays, most people don't. And, they're a little tricky to keep going and to get them to actually change their color of their leaves back at the right time. They have to go through a whole process. I put a link here and there to a Minnesota Extension site that goes through a whole year-long process, month to month, of what to do. If you're interested, you can look that up. Most people just treat these as winter annuals. Cyclamen. These will bloom in the winter for up to 3 months. I know when I first moved to Missouri back in 2017, I couldn't believe it when I went to a nursery and it was, I guess, January, and I saw they had cyclamen everywhere, and I was outdoors in their nursery, and I said, excuse me, how are you able to keep all these outside? And they said, oh, these can be outside. They don't like to be in a frozen or in a frost. You cover them during that time, but otherwise they can sit outside in Georgia when it's cold, no problem. So that was a real light bulb for me. Allow them to dry out between waterings. They're often treated, like I said, as a short-lived winter holiday houseplant. Many of these are. Pinch the spent blooms to encourage it to continue blooming, just like you would a petunia. will not tolerate frost. So if we're going to get a frost or the temps are going to get down to the 20s, like go throw a towel or something over it. But that doesn't really happen a whole lot in Gwinnett County. So we're pretty fortunate. Always look for a plant with lots of buds just starting to open because you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck. Rosemary. These are adorable little tree-shaped rosemaries. They sell them in these little tree-shaped now so that you can buy them and use them for the herb and also decorate them as a tree with little ornaments or just leave them as they are, like this one in the picture with a little bow. It's known to be very drought tolerant, but that refers to outdoors. So don't think that because it's drought tolerant, Mediterranean herb outdoors, it's the same for the indoors. It's an artificial environment. Keep it evenly moist. Put it in a bright sunny window. You can cut sprigs for cooking, but just make sure, you're keeping that little tree shape if that's what you want. It can live for a couple of months indoors, but it really wants to be outside. So once, we get temperatures above the 25-degree Fahrenheit and we get some good planting days in January, you want to plant it outside. It may reduce anxiety, improve memory and cognition, and boost mood. I actually came across several scientific publications when I was looking at this, talking about how rosemary is this very hot herb that's being studied now by scientists to help people with their cognitive performance. So a lot of promising things coming with rosemary. Norfolk Island pine is actually not a pine, but it's called a pine, one of those plants that's got the wrong kind of name for a common name, but we forgive it. It likes a brightly lit area in your home. You're going to want to water it when the surface of the soil feels dry. It likes the typical indoor temperatures. So if you move this plant out, and I would suggest keeping this year round. I have mine, people who are here for the in-person presentation, I've got my little one out on the table. I bought that last November, probably November, December. It's still going. Decorated again as a little Christmas tree. It's wonderful. It loves humidity. Where I have mine, it's not humid at all. It's in my office, and I just try to put a lot of plants around it. I have a little bit of help that way. All the plants together increase humidity. I mist it occasionally. You don't want this thing to get all dry because it will start to get brittle needles and drop them and turn yellow. But if you can keep it moist, it'll be very, very happy for you. Lemon cypress is another wonderful plant, and I got into these last year. Actually, a couple of years ago, I bought one, brought it indoors, I killed it. Bought another one last year. It was extremely happy. And then in the spring, I put it outdoors, and all spring and summer, it sat in my garden. I just had the little terracotta pot sitting out there with the other plants kind of protecting it. Looked wonderful. Forgot to bring it in when we had our first freeze and frost, and so many times I grabbed that plant wanting to bring it in to show people, and I was like, I can't do that. That's embarrassing. Like, I'm just not going to show that thing. Anyway, if I would have brought it in, it would have still been kicking. I shouldn't have left it out, but they're called lemon cypress because when you touch them or brush the leaves, they will release that lemony citrus scent. They have that lemony chartreuse color. The dwarf topiaries can reach up to 3 feet in height. They like 60-degree temps, which is a temperature that most homes don't have. So they like to be, if you bring them indoors, a cold window or an unheated room if possible. If you have a porch or maybe an unheated basement with a window, will do well as long as they're getting sun. They need to be repotted in large containers when you bring them home. If you buy one at the store, it's almost guaranteed potted in something that's too small. So repot it in something that's slightly larger, no special mix required, just something suitable for potted plants. And don't let them dry out. For the love of everything, don't let them dry out. They want to be kept evenly moist. So if it's dry in your house, you might have to water this thing a couple times a week. If they dry out, they'll crisp up and not rebound. Fertilize only once the entire year, which is nice. In spring, I've listed a few different fertilizers there, holly tone, tree tone, any of those for trees. And pruning is essential. This was something that I didn't know, and once I learned it, I loved it. Happily prune the tips of your lemon cypress every 2 weeks to encourage more growth. It's almost like you're giving just a little light haircut all around the edges of this thing to stimulate growth, and it really, really encourages it to flourish. Kalanchoe. This one prefers bright light and will get spindly in low light conditions. It's a succulent, so allow the soil to dry out between the waterings. It thrives in 50 to 70 degrees temperature during the day, prefers cooler nights. So a lot of us, I know I do, I keep my house cooler at night because I like to sleep when it's kind of cold. So that's helpful. If you keep your house really warm, you might want to move it next to a cold window or put it on a porch. fertilize it once a month with all-purpose fertilizer, move outdoors in the spring, bring it back inside before the first frost. This requires the same photo period that poinsettias do. So you would want to mimic the poinsettia routine if you're trying to get this one to rebloom for you. So I say happy shopping. I did the very arduous and terrible task of going all around Gwinnett County shopping for holiday plants to see what was available. So these are some pictures from Pike Nursery, and just shows you the variety of different things you have. So you can get little poinsettias as like table place settings. They're very small. They have the little Grinch tree, the grump tree. Sometimes they're in cypress. Sometimes this is a false cypress here with an ornament. They have Dusty Miller in there, polka dot plant, just all types of different beautiful things in unique ways that you can get. This was at Home Depot, I believe. Showed you some of the waxed amaryllis over there to the right. Very nice and different colors. They don't just have them in red and white. They had blue and green, and you could use them for other holidays. The rosemary to the far left, you could use it as a little Christmas tree and then plant it in your landscape when you're done, and it's a perennial. As you see, I wanted to capture here in this middle picture, they have these listed as 1-quart zygote cactus, which as we know is not a correct term. You want to look at those little leaves to see what they are, and they're most likely truncata, so that would be a Thanksgiving cactus. These are pictures from Trader Joe's, and I know we don't have many of these around here. The one that I do know of is in Peachtree Corners in Gwinnett County. They have an amazing selection, though, amazing variety, a lot of good prices for things that you can't always find everywhere. A lot of creative little things too. Besides the waxed amaryllis, the box plants, where they've just uniquely put things together in a way that is really nice to bring into your home. And then this amaryllis on the right, that's one of my many amaryllis at my house. That's the amaryllis doublet. And I like to get these little stakes. I got those off Amazon because sometimes they get so tall that they will flop over, or the entire plant and pot will fall over and the pot will shatter. That's happened too. That's not something you want to happen. So if you can invest in a package of these stakes, I love the ones that curl around the actual stalk. They're so much better than taking just a stick and tying it with some twine. They look better too. Do that. On the left here, this is an assortment of different holiday herbs that they sell in little assortments. This is, I believe, Trader Joe's I have right here. Very nice. You can keep those going after the holidays. And these are my sources. So if you would like to, I think Lisa was going to show to the audience at home some of the plants I have on the table. And Lisa, you'll need to tell me what to do from a tech support situation. And then anybody here in person or at home wants to submit a question, I'd be happy to answer. Yes.
I have a Thanksgiving cactus that I've had for 2 years, and when I first purchased it, it had blooms.
Mm-hmm.
Then the blooms fell off maybe about a month or two later, and it hasn't bloomed since.
Mm-hmm.
And I've tried everything, and it just won't bloom.
So have you repotted it?
No.
Okay, so we have a guest in person here asking about her Thanksgiving cactus that she got a couple of years ago that was healthy when she got it, and then now it's hasn't bloomed since. So you haven't repotted it. What do you take it outside during the summertime? It would really, I'm looking for my slide on holiday cactus. So yeah, they do like to go outside during the summer. That really does help them. And they would benefit from a photo period of having some more darkness, some shorter days. The fertilizer of 10-10-10 once per month. That's something that's imperative, because if it hasn't been repotted, it's probably used all the nutrients that were in that pot already when it bloomed the first time. And if it hasn't gotten fertilizer and hasn't gotten new soil, it doesn't have any energy to draw on. So I would try that, and that should probably get you in a better spot for next winter.
It's very healthy.
Very healthy, yeah.
It just won't, I don't see really buds.
Mm-hmm. It's going to produce those buds. It's going to need some fertilizer and probably some new soil.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Do we have anything else?
If you wanted to propagate your holiday cactus,
Mm-hmm.
when would you do it? Would you do it after it's bloomed?
Yes. So if you want to propagate your holiday cactus, that was our question. You do it after it blooms. And just like any succulent, really, you can, snap off some of those segments, those stem segments, let them callus up a little bit and lay them on soil. And it's a very simple process, just like a succulent, because it is a succulent. Very easy to propagate.
So you can stop sharing.
Okay, I can't find my mouse for some reason. Okay, where is the mouse? Lisa, it's not letting me locate where the mouse is, so I can't select stop share for some reason. It's on there, but it's not on here. Should I end slideshow?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And thank you for bearing with us at home because we are always working out our different technology. I just really wanted you guys to see some of the plants that I brought into for you guys to see today. And then for the ones that are here, I'm going to ask a few little quiz questions for some giveaways. So we'll first let Lisa look at the plants that we have. And then if you have any questions, you could submit those to the chat. These are all mine. The ones in the front that I just recently purchased, I was going to give as gifts to my daughter's teachers. So I was like, well, okay, dual use. But yeah, the poinsettias are all mine and the paperweights are mine. Okay, so I believe Lisa's zooming in on those.
See it?
I don't, but okay, there we go. Yes, now I see. Okay, so we have the poinsettias, the paper whites, and this is a bottle of Wilt Stop over here that I believe she showed. Yeah, that's a wonderful product. You can get it at Lowe's, Home Depot, Amazon, a lot of the nurseries like Pike and Puddle and Pond. And the poinsettias come in all kinds of different varieties. This one's called a winter rose, and this actually works really well as a cut flower, unlike any other poinsettia. You can snip those stems, pull the bottom leaves off, and stick them in water. And I think mine lasted for a couple of months after Christmas last year in water. Everybody was oohing and awing over it. These are paper whites in a little shallow bowl. They haven't bloomed yet. I've got some moss in there. I'm a little irritated by the uneven height of those, but that has more to do with me not rotating them around to get those fluorescent lights in my office. Here's a calancho in the front, very cheery little succulent plant. Cyclamen, again, you can put that on your porch and some outdoor plantings and just make sure you cover it if we're going to get a frost or a freeze. I kind of think of them a little bit like pansies, maybe not quite as hardy, but these are some Hoyas here in the back, and I didn't cover those, but I thought they were just a perfect little plant to showcase you guys because they're great for Valentine's Day, which is coming up in a couple of months. If you can buy this little Hoya as a heart plant, people love getting those, and you'll probably see a lot of those. I've seen them come out over the years. And we have Thanksgiving cacti that are being sold as Christmas cacti or zygo. We can pat ourselves on the back for knowing what that is. And then this poinsettia in the back, I think is just so cool because it's got the red and the white and the splashed and kind of the peppermint effect. It's called red glitter. So yeah, all fun plants. Okay, and so for the people that I have here in person with me, I have some trivia questions for you to see how well you're paying attention. Okay, so who can tell me what is the real name of a leaf or a flower of a poinsettia?
Raft.
That's right. So Karen Walsh is correct, and Karen, you get to have one of these little heart Hoyas to take home. There you go. Enjoy. Okay, another question I have is which holiday cactus is the Thanksgiving cactus and which is the Christmas? How do you tell them apart?
Thanksgiving cactus has the thorny
Mm-hmm.
sides, and the Christmas cactus
Mm-hmm.
is not as, it's smoother.
More smoother. Yes, yes.
Cactus.
Yes, you get a Hoya too. So this, our audience member just answered that the Christmas cactus is smoother and more rounded and scalloped, whereas the Thanksgiving cactus has the claws. I will show one. Okay. Thank you. Okay. And then another trivia question is, how often do you want to water paper whites when they're planted in a shallow bowl? Does anybody know? How do you know when to water your paper whites when they're in a bowl? I can see Karen knows. You want to answer?
You want to have the water level being right at the bottom of the bulbs all the time and never have the bulbs submerged.
Right.
But keep that level up because the roots will grow into that. keep it adequately hydrated.
So she said you want to keep the water at the bottom where the roots are growing, but not have the whole thing submerged. And that's exactly right. You don't want to drown the poor thing, but you do want to make sure that its roots are getting water. She's going to want a little gardening journal with some bookmarks. There you go. Okay, Lisa, do you want to come up with the final question?
So Jessica asked, what about grow lights?
Grow lights. Okay, so
I assume because it popped on when we were talking about the timing on Christmas cactus.
yeah. So grow lights, I have not had to use grow lights because I have either placed my holiday cactus in a sunny area, or I have put them in my office, which has those, fluorescent lights that you see it typically in an office. As long as they're getting enough light, I think under a grow light, depending how close you have it to the light, it could be too much. You don't want to scorch those succulent leaves of a holiday cactus. Now, I actually, at home in my basement in the storage room, this sounds very bizarre, but there are no windows, and I have some grow lights in there, and I have some holiday cactus that are nearby, but that's only because there literally is no other light source, and they're far away from those grow lights. So you have to make sure that you're not getting it too intense. Something that I usually talk about with using grow lights is having one of those light meters you can get very inexpensively on Amazon and other places. And it will actually tell you how much light is coming from your window or how much light is coming from your grow light. So you're a little more informed when you make those decisions. I hope that helps. Any other questions?
Next one, what's the best way to clean up magnolia leaves for decorating?
Best way to clean up magnolia leaves. So I assume you mean when you're cutting them off your tree or outside and you bring them in and you don't want bugs or you don't want dust or dirt or whatever. I usually take a hard brush to things like that. So think about those brushes you use like to clean vegetables or to brush the dirt off your shoes, things like that, something kind of scruffy. And outdoors or in your garage, scrape them off like that or give them a little bit of a rub. You don't want to put them in water because that's really not going to be it's not going to be good for the leaf. You want it to stay dry so that it holds up. And magnolia leaves do hold up really well for a long time, surprisingly so.
Okay. This one says, I received an amaryllis last Christmas, read about how to have it bloom the next year, follow the instructions, but there's not even a hint of green on the bulb. Will it possibly rebloom again at some point?
Okay, so Lisa just read the question in the chat about getting the amaryllis from last year to rebloom. She followed all the instructions and it still hasn't rebloomed or even put out green. So one thing that I've found that people sometimes do, and I actually accidentally did this myself too, just like when you have bulbs out in your yard, so say you have daffodils or whatever bloom, whenever the leaves start turning yellow, it's very instinctive to want to cut them, but you can't. You have to really let the whole thing die back, and that's how they get their energy for the next year. So it's possible, I don't know if this particular person did this, but if after your amaryllis was done blooming, if you cut the stalk back and the leaves, you really needed to leave those leaves going and leave them until they died off on their own. It's not pretty, but it's something that the bulb requires for energy. Assuming you fertilized and gave it new soil and kept it, in the right light and dark. Something else is if you possibly let that amaryllis go, if it let it go to seed, that takes a lot of the energy from the next year too. So even if you follow all the instructions, if you let the amaryllis go to seed, that's taking so many nutrients from that bulb, it's not going to have enough to produce the next year. So definitely, yeah, I think maybe you mentioned in your chat response that you did cut those leaves off. So yeah, just like with your bulbs in the yard that get the yucky looking leaves, you got to leave it for a while, just long enough for them to get their energy. Is there anything else?
Have any others?
Okay.
If there's any last questions.
Are there any last questions from anybody for the chat that I could answer for you? And then I was going to have Lisa actually come up with our last trivia question that I can ask everybody, something that you think would be a good trivia question.
Good trivia question.
Sorry. I wanted to get an outside perspective.
What are some rare colors of holiday cactus that people might not know about?
Okay, so Lisa says, what are some rare colors of holiday cactus that people may not know about? So for the people who are here with me in person, if you can give me that answer, I've got one last heart Hoya to give away. And if nobody knows, then we will just enlighten you.
Yellow.
Yellow. So Deb DeSalvo answered yellow, and that happens to be one that Lisa's looking for. So everybody on our Zoom today, if anybody finds a yellow holiday cactus out there, please send Lisa an email. Yeah, let her know where you found it because we haven't been able to find them. She really wants a yellow one because her previous one died. So if you see one, let us know. And Deb is the winner of our final Heart Hoya. You can use this as a little Valentine decoration if you wish, or if you don't wish, that's fine too. Thank you. And as we always say, if you have any horticulture questions or anything really regarding anything plant related, you could contact us, email us, call us, come by. If you have any diseases that you would like to have diagnosed, send us a picture or bring the plant material in. We do soil samples as well. And Lisa does monthly presentations. You can register for those as well. Do we have another question? I saw one just pop up.
It's just thank yous.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. And please register for the February microgreen talk because it'll be very interesting, I promise. Thank you.